At this very moment, within the vast, uncharted cathedral of your body, trillions of tiny fires are flickering. Not metaphorical fires, real ones. Molecular infernos, lit by ancient engines that hum just beneath your awareness. They burn quietly inside every cell you've ever owned, inherited, or lost. They are your mitochondria, threaded ghosts from a world that predates your heartbeat. And they do something no machine on Earth has ever done. They take the breath you forget you're taking and turn it into motion. Memory, even grief. You don't notice them. You don't thank them. But they are the reason you can walk, weep, dream, and die. And here's the secret no one tells you. These aren't just powerhouses. They're storytellers. They whisper tales of your mother, and her mother before her, keeping an unbroken pulse that reaches backward through time, through wombs and wars, all the way to the sea. This is not just biology. It's haunted. And once you see them, you won't unsee the fireflies flickering in the dark. You're not alone in your body. This isn't metaphor. You're made of yourself, yes, but you're also made of others. Inside every cell, curled up like sleeping serpents, lie ancient creatures that don't belong to you. Not really. They're older than your bones, older than vertebrates, older than nervous systems and mouths and skin. They're mitochondria, and they are not human. They were never meant to be. These tiny organelles, less than a speck, invisible to the naked eye, once roamed the oceans as free-living bacteria. Unchained, solitary, breathing oxygen before any creature knew how. And then, one day, about 2 billion years ago, they made a strange deal. A cell swallowed one. Not to eat it, but to keep it. This was not an act of violence. It was closer to adoption. Or perhaps a pact. The cell gave the bacteria protection, shelter, a life inside. And in return, the bacteria gave something extraordinary: energy, a furnace built from atoms, forged from the air. Together, they created the first eukaryotic cell, the kind of cell that would eventually build forests, whales, and people like you. That partnership, that ancient fusion, never ended. Every time your body divides a cell, it replicates that pact again. The mitochondria multiply, coil inside the new cell, and continue burning. Quietly. Endlessly. This is the origin of your fire. Not metaphorical fire. Real biochemical flame. They take oxygen and glucose and spin them into ATPA, adenosine triphosphate. The pure chemical spark that powers every movement your body makes. Every heartbeat. Every blink. Every dream. Every word that spills from your mouth in laughter or fury. Every breath you didn't know you were holding. You are lit from within. You are flickering. All the time. And yet you never think of them. Mitochondria do not demand attention. They do not shout. They hum. They shimmer. They persist. In the background, they are as constant as gravity, as steady as the moon's pull on tides. But there's something strange about them. Something ghost-like. Because these aren't just machines. They're messengers. When a child is born, their mitochondria do not come equally from both parents. They are passed down almost entirely from the mother. That means the mitochondria in your body are not a mix. They are a thread. A direct, unbroken biological line, passed from mother to child, across thousands of years. If you follow the trail far enough, all the way back, you eventually arrive at a single woman. We call her mitochondrial Eve. She was not the only woman alive in her time. She was not the first human, nor the most powerful, nor the most remembered. But her mitochondria survived. The line never broke. Every person on Earth carries a copy of her mitochondrial flame. And that means, in a very real scientific sense, you are haunted. Not by memories. Not by regrets, but by a molecule that remembers something older than history. Let that sink in. Inside you, something remembers the ocean. Something remembers the silence before speech. The breath before the world had names. And if that isn't haunting, what is? But mitochondria aren't just relics. They're active participants in your story. When they function well, you feel it in every cell. You're alive, alert, radiant. But when they begin to falter, the consequences ripple. Mitochondrial dysfunction is linked to everything, from fatigue to neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, even aging itself. Some scientists believe that the slow decline of mitochondrial function is the very engine of mortality. In other words, when your inner fire begins to flicker, so do you. You are not a machine that wears out. You are a flame that burns down. And this is where the poetry meets the biology. Mitochondria are both the bringers of life and the slow agents of death. They are your power source and your hourglass. Every spark they produce inches you closer to your final quiet. And yet, paradoxically, this is what makes them beautiful. Because if you strip everything else away, titles, stories, names, fears, even memories, you are still a light trying to stay lit. You are still a whisper of energy passed from womb to womb, body to body, trying to keep the fire going for just one more breath, one more blink, one more day. The mitochondria in your cells don't know your name. They don't know what you love. They don't care about your favorite color or your deepest regrets. But they burn for you anyway, faithfully, quietly, without applause, like a lighthouse in the fog. And you, like a firefly in the dark. They are the ghosts that power you. And now that you see them, really see them, you might begin to feel what they've been doing all along, lighting the way. Close your eyes for a moment, not in sleep, but in stillness. Now imagine peeling back your skin, not with violence, but with wonder. Layer by layer, you descend, not down into darkness, but into light. You pass through muscle, bone, vessels, pulsing with red. You keep going, deeper still, until the walls of your body blur and all that remains is a shimmering map of cells. It's a city, not metaphorically, a literal city made of living structures. Each cell is a room, each organelle a worker, and at the heart of nearly every room you'll find a mitochondrion, a glowing furnace humming with soft, ceaseless light. These furnaces don't burn wood or oil. They burn sugar and oxygen, and the result is something far more precious than smoke or ash. ATP. Imagine it like tiny coins of energy. Every action your body performs, curling your fingers, dilating your pupils, remembering the smell of rain, costs a few of these coins. Without ATP, your body goes bankrupt. And mitochondria are the only mint in town. Each of your cells contains anywhere from a few hundred to tens of thousands of mitochondria, depending on how much energy it needs. Heart cells? Packed with them. Brain cells? Absolutely loaded. Skin. A bit less so, but still glowing. Even in the quietest corners of you. Your eyelids, your earlobes, the webs between your fingers, the fire still burns. Every second of your life, your body produces and spends millions of ATP molecules. Total amount in your body weighs only about 50 grams, but you recycle your entire ATP store every minute. Over a day, your mitochondria generate enough ATP to match your entire body weight. Read that again. You make your weight in raw cellular energy every 24 hours. And you never notice. Because it's all happening beneath the surface. The city never sleeps, and the furnaces never stop. But it's not just energy. Mitochondria do more than power, they decide. They influence when a cell divides, when it rests, and even when it dies. In fact, When a cell needs to be destroyed, say, because it's become damaged or dangerous, it's often the mitochondria that signal for its self-destruction. This is called apoptosis, programmed cell death. And it is not failure. It is grace. Imagine a single cell realizing it has become toxic, unstable. Rather than spread the danger, it chooses silence. It releases a cascade of signals that unravel its structure from the inside. It folds in on itself like a flower at dusk. The mitochondria are the ones who light that final candle. And in that ending, they protect the whole. Sometimes, dying is an act of devotion. Your mitochondria know this. They've always known this. They came from a world where life was simpler and more brutal. A world of trade and survival. They brought that clarity with them when they entered our cells, and they've never forgotten it. So yes, they make energy. But they also make decisions. Quiet ones, brutal ones, necessary ones. And still, we rarely speak of them. We talk about our heart, our brain, our DNA, but not our mitochondria. Why? Because they're not loud. They're not pretty. They don't announce themselves in color or shape. They look like beans, or worms, or little sacs filled with squiggles. Those squiggles, the folded inner membranes, are where the magic happens. That's the cristae. That's where electrons are passed along like notes in a whisper, generating the charge that keeps us alive. If you could shrink yourself down, really down, you'd see those membranes shimmering. You'd hear a soft electric hum. You'd smell nothing, feel nothing, but your ears would ring with life. Kind of micro-electric symphony. And you'd understand, maybe for the first time, that life doesn't happen on the surface. It happens in the folds, in the hidden places, in the firelight no one talks about. The mitochondria in your body do not come from your father. This is not cultural. This is cellular. When the egg and sperm meet, the sperm brings its DNA, a single head filled with instructions, but very little else. The egg, by contrast, is vast. It carries nutrients, structure, warmth, and mitochondria. Hundreds of thousands of them. They line its walls like tiny lanterns, ready to light the first fires of life. And when the zygote forms, when you begin, those maternal mitochondria are what remain. Your father's mitochondria are destroyed, silenced, swept away in the aftermath of fusion. And from that moment on, your cells multiply using only your mother's mitochondrial line. This means something strange and beautiful. The fire that powers your body was not lit by you. It was given, gifted, carried forward across generations of women whose names you may never know. You could follow it back if you wanted, through your mother, then her mother, then hers. A thread unbroken, passed in silence through centuries, through famine, birth, shipwreck, ceremony, through wars and lullabies and winters. Your mitochondrial DNA has not changed much. It still holds the shape it did in the deep past. That's why we can use it to trace ancestry, not just in individuals, but in the entire species. Scientists have followed this thread back to a single theoretical woman, often referred to as mitochondrial Eve. She lived somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago, likely in Africa. Again, she was not the only woman alive at the time, but hers is the line that survived, uninterrupted. Her mitochondrial flame burns in every human alive today. This is not myth. This is math. And it means that the mitochondria inside your body once lived in a woman whose bones are now dust. They lived in her daughters, in her daughters' daughters, in the ones who survived, who carried fire through the cold, who whispered songs into newborn ears, who bore children in caves and huts and villages and cities, all of them lit from within by these same tiny beings, these same ancestral furnaces. Your mitochondria are a memory of her, not her thoughts, not her face, not her voice, but something deeper. They are the rhythm of her breath, the hunger in her muscles, the glow behind her eyes. They are her flame, passed like a candle through time. And now, you carry it. When you move, you extend her story. When you rest, you honor her silence. When your cells divide and your mitochondria split, always by fission, like their ancient bacterial ancestors, you are keeping the chain alive. And if you choose to have a child, and that child is born from your body, they will carry that flame too. Unbroken, unquestioning, quiet. There is something sacred in this, not in a religious sense, but in a biological one. An inheritance written not in land or name, but in fire. You are the sum of millions of small survivals. Each breath you take is built on a long line of breaths that came before. And the mitochondria in your chest remember all of them. Not in words, not in images, but in persistence. They are not storytellers. They are the story itself. Think of your earliest memory. No matter how faded, how strange, or how simple, it exists because a flame was burning. Your mind, for all its complexity, depends on a simple rule. Without energy, nothing happens. And nowhere in your body is energy more urgently consumed than in your brain. Even at rest, your brain devours about 20% of your body's total energy supply. A hungry organ, always active, always listening, even in sleep, even in dream. And that fuel, ATP, the cell's currency, comes almost entirely from mitochondria. They are your mind's secret architects. Every neuron, every glial cell, every delicate electrical signal that flickers across your synapses is powered by these microscopic engines. They sit along the axons like train depots, fueling the transmission of thoughts. The very act of remembering a name, or feeling a pang of grief, is a metabolic event. That thought, whatever it is, has a cost. Your mitochondria pay it, but their role in the brain runs deeper than just energy. They help regulate calcium levels, control the death of damaged neurons, and even shape the growth of neural pathways in your developing brain. In children, mitochondrial function helps wire the brain's architecture. In adults, it supports memory and focus. And when they falter, the effects can be devastating. Mitochondrial dysfunction is now linked to a wide range of neurological conditions. Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, Huntington's, even forms of autism and bipolar disorder. It's as if the flickering of those inner fires becomes erratic, casting shadows instead of light. When your mitochondria begin to dim, the mind begins to lose its shape. Memories slip. Thoughts scatter. Emotions fray. This is not the cruelty of aging. This is the slowing of the furnaces. Imagine a city in winter. Street lamps dim. The hum of power lines fades. Trains slow to a crawl. Everything still exists, but it exists more faintly. The people inside shiver. The voice of the city becomes a whisper. That's what mitochondrial failure looks like in the brain. And yet, in the moments when your mind feels sharp, when your thoughts are clear and your imagination vivid, you are experiencing something miraculous. Not metaphorically miraculous. Biochemically miraculous. Billions of tiny organelles, each with their own genome, are creating enough energy for consciousness to happen. And consciousness is not small. It's the experience of being you, the taste of your own thinking, the mirror that reflects inward. And somehow that vast complex architecture rests on the hum of fireflies in your cells. It should feel impossible. But it isn't. It's happening now. As you listen, as you interpret these words, as your brain turns language into meaning, and meaning into wonder. And somewhere, down in the folds of your neurons, a mitochondrion is at work. It is not aware of you. It does not know it powers memory, or a question, or a poem, but it powers it all the same. Faithfully, silently, completely. You owe your mind to creatures that have no mind at all. We often think of life as growth, expansion, becoming. But life, at the cellular level, is equally about endings, about knowing when to stop, when to fold, when to vanish. Mitochondria know this. They do not only create, they decide when to end. Inside each of your cells is a delicate balance between survival and self-destruction. Too little control, and cells grow wild, cancerous. Too much control, and healthy tissue erodes. In this balance, mitochondria are the judges, the quiet executioners. They are the ones who begin apoptosis, the pre-programmed death of a cell. It sounds brutal, but it's not. It's precision, wisdom, protection. Imagine a single skin cell. It's old, damaged. Its DNA is frayed. It can no longer divide safely. So it triggers a sequence guided by its mitochondria. Proteins are released. Membranes collapse. The cell dismantles itself from the inside out, leaving no trace. No mess. No war. Just a clean disappearance. This happens billions of times a day in your body. You lose skin, blood, even intestinal lining, and replace it without noticing. Your mitochondria are constantly balancing between energy and silence, creation and cessation, fire and ash. They are not sentimental. They are precise. But they can also be overwhelmed. If too many mitochondria become damaged by stress, toxins, mutations, or age, they begin to falter. They leak. They produce reactive oxygen species, unstable molecules that damage nearby DNA and proteins. And when this spreads, cells begin to malfunction. Your body tries to clean this up. It uses mitophagy, a kind of cellular recycling, where damaged mitochondria are broken down and their parts reused. It's a dance of destruction and rebirth, like composting on the molecular level. But when the system fails, when old or broken mitochondria accumulate, the damage compounds. Cells grow sluggish, organs slow, tissues weaken, and gradually, aging begins to write its story across your body. Wrinkles, stiff joints, fatigue that comes sooner, lingers longer. These are not curses. They're echoes. They're signs that the fire is dimming. But here's the thing. Some fires last longer. We've seen people in their 90s with youthful mitochondrial function. We've seen cells that repair themselves, recycle efficiently, burn clean twine. What's the difference? Diet? Movement? Luck? Maybe all of these. Maybe something deeper. But what matters is that the story is not set in stone. Your mitochondria are responsive, adaptive. They can change. Intermittent fasting, for example, has been shown to improve mitophagy. Certain kinds of movement, especially endurance exercise, stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, creating new, efficient organelles. Sleep, deep and regular, gives your cells time to repair. Even your emotional state, your stress levels, can influence how well your mitochondria perform. You are not helpless in this. You can fan the flame, not to live forever, but to live better, brighter. Because aging isn't a sudden collapse. It's a negotiation, a series of small cellular decisions, some reversible, some not. And in many of them, mitochondria have the final say. They are your internal clocks. And they do not tick. They burn. Sometimes, the fire goes out too early. There are people, many of them children, whose mitochondria don't work the way they're meant to. Their furnaces are cracked. Their cells flicker in and out. These are mitochondrial diseases, and they are among the most devastating, mysterious disorders we know. Imagine your body trying to run on a broken generator. Muscles weaken. The brain misfires. The heart stutters. Energy runs out before the day even begins. For some, it's fatigue so deep, it feels like drowning. For others, it's seizures, blindness, organ failure. A childhood lived inside the fog of exhaustion. These aren't rare in the way we wish they were. Mitochondrial disorders affect an estimated 1 in every 4,000 people. And there is no cure. No fix. Only management. Only waiting. Only the quiet hope that science will catch up to the suffering. And yet, those who live with these conditions often speak of a strange clarity, a deeper connection to time, a feeling that life burns faster, but also brighter. Every good day is a victory. Every moment of strength, a kind of miracle. We spend so much of our lives unaware of the energy we're spending. We race. We chase. We burn thoughtlessly. But when energy is limited, when the fire is faint, you begin to feel each spark. You become attuned to your body's silent language. You listen. You move with care. In that way, mitochondrial disease reveals something the rest of us often miss. Just how much it costs to be alive. Just how much work goes into simply being. That's why research into mitochondrial function is growing rapidly. Scientists are discovering that these tiny organelles aren't just a niche curiosity. They may hold the keys to far more, to aging, to cancer, to chronic fatigue, to immunity, even to mental health. There's a growing belief that mitochondria are not peripheral. They are central, a kind of hidden operating system. Glitches in this system may explain why some people experience brain fog after illness, why others feel deeply fatigued after trauma, why some recover quickly and others collapse. It all comes back to energy, how it's made, how it's managed, how it's lost. And the mitochondria sit at the very center of that storm. So if you're someone who feels tired all the time, not sleepy but heavy, like your body is full of sand, it might not be in your head. It might be in your cells. If your concentration slips, if your body aches, if you feel like something is always slightly off, it's worth asking. Are your inner fires burning well? Because health is not always about pain or illness. Sometimes it's about charge. Are you powered? Are you glowing? Or are you flickering? This is not a metaphor. This is biology. And in learning to see it, to feel it, you might begin to understand what your body has been trying to tell you all along. It's not lazy. It's trying to light the dark with broken matches. And yet, it burns anyway. Your body is not at peace. It may look calm, resting, reading, lying still beneath the surface. But beneath your skin, there is always a quiet war. A war for balance, for order, for survival. At the cellular level, chaos is the default. Molecules collide. Proteins misfold. DNA breaks. Toxins seep. Viruses invade. And in the middle of all this, your mitochondria stand like ancient sentinels, absorbing the blows. They are not just passive engines. They are your first responders. When something goes wrong, when a cell is infected or stressed, mitochondria release danger signals, chemical flares. They call for help. They alert the immune system. They summon white blood cells. They trigger inflammation. In that sense, mitochondria are not just about power. They're about defense. But the same fire that warms can also burn. When mitochondria release too many of these danger signals, or when they're damaged and don't shut off, The immune system can spiral. It attacks too hard, too long, and the inflammation becomes chronic. This is the secret behind many modern diseases. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune disorders, even depression. They often share a root in chronic inflammation, an immune response that won't turn off. And at the center of this storm, you often find broken mitochondria, leaking signals like sparks onto dry grass. This is not science fiction. It's not theory. It's the body turning against itself because its fires are out of tune. Even in cancer, mitochondria play a twisted role. Some cancer cells alter their mitochondrial function to avoid death. They hijack the very processes that would normally cause them to self-destruct. They burn without conscience, feeding on sugar, multiplying without limit. In a sense, cancer is what happens when the cellular fire forgets when to die. And yet, your mitochondria keep fighting. Every day. Even now. Right now. As you sit, or lie, or listen, your cells are making thousands of tiny choices. To grow. To pause. To repair. To die. And your mitochondria help decide which path is taken. They are the fire beneath your healing, and the edge of your decay. They remember the bacterial wars of their origin, and they bring that ruthless precision into your body. You might never notice it, but the moment you get sick and recover, your mitochondria were there. When your wound scabs, when your fever breaks, when your strength returns, they were part of the story. They are part of every story, because nothing in your body happens without energy, and nothing makes energy like them. Even your heartbeat, the soft percussion that plays your life's rhythm, relies on a perfect balance of charge, carried by ions shaped by mitochondria. When that rhythm falters, when the fire stutters, the whole orchestra wobbles. And yet, the music plays on. For now. And that's the thing, isn't it? This balance is fragile. You are not made of stone. You are made of fire. And fire is wild. It needs tending. It needs respect. Because if the fire burns too hot, it consumes. If it burns too cold, it dies. But when it burns just right, you live. Take a breath. No, real. Breathe. Feel the air draw in. Fill your chest. Expand the soft cage of your ribs. Most people stop thinking after that, as if breath ends at the lungs. But inside you, a much deeper exchange is happening. Oxygen doesn't just sit there. It doesn't just float. It dives. Each molecule of oxygen travels across thin membranes, slipping into the bloodstream, carried on the backs of red blood cells like tiny ferrymen. It winds through arteries, narrows into capillaries, and finally reaches your cells. And there, in a space smaller than imagination, oxygen meets the mitochondria. That's where the spark happens. It's not poetry. It's oxidative phosphorylation, the final stage of cellular respiration. Inside the mitochondria's inner membrane, a chain of proteins passes electrons like runners in a relay race. With each handoff, protons are pumped, a gradient is built, and like water behind a dam, potential energy swells. Then, through a microscopic turbine called ATP synthase, the dam is released. The protons flow back, spinning the turbine, generating ATP. And just like that, breath becomes motion. Air becomes electricity. Life becomes possible. Every breath you take fuels this exact process. Tens of trillions of times, every second, across your whole body. Breath isn't just for lungs, it's for light. It's for fire. Without mitochondria, oxygen would be poison. And here's a strange truth. For billions of years, oxygen was a deadly gas. Early life forms avoided it, even feared it. But when mitochondria, or rather, their bacterial ancestors, evolved to use oxygen as fuel, everything changed. Suddenly, energy could be extracted at a scale never seen before. This was the great oxygen revolution inside your cells. A leap in complexity. A rise in intelligence. Without mitochondria learning to tame oxygen, complex life could never have existed. Not trees. Not birds. Not you. Even now, this mastery is ongoing. Your mitochondria must keep oxygen in tight control. Too little, and the fire dims. Too much, and it burns too hot, producing free radicals, tiny missiles that can shred DNA, twist proteins, unravel cell walls. This is the paradox of life. The thing that sustains you can also destroy you. It all depends on the balance. And the balance depends on those tiny organelles in your cells, spinning their turbines, measuring charge, passing electrons across invisible bridges. They are like blacksmiths. They take raw breath and hammer it into usable power. But quietly, without flame, without smoke. Your mitochondria do not celebrate. They do not rest. They only burn. And in that burning, they connect you to something primal, something ancient. You are breathing the same type of air your ancestors did. The same element that powered the bodies of mammoths, monks, and midwives. And in every case, the mitochondria received it, spun it, and used it to light the body from within. It makes you wonder, if breath becomes spark, then what becomes of all those sparks once breath is gone? Where does the fire go? We'll return to that. But for now, remember, you do not breathe for yourself alone. You breathe for your mitochondria. And they breathe for you. You have DNA. You know this. Long spirals of coded instruction, packed into the nucleus of every cell. It's the blueprint of you. But what most people don't realize is that there's another genome inside you. A smaller one. A stranger one. Your mitochondria carry their own DNA. It's circular, not linear like the rest of yours. More like a relic. Fossil. And that's because it is a relic. Evidence of their ancient origin as independent bacteria. Mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, is small. Just 37 genes, compared to over 20,000 in your nuclear DNA. But those 37 genes are critical. They code for the essential proteins and RNAs that mitochondria need to make energy. Without them, the fire goes out. And here's the astonishing part. While your nuclear DNA is a blend from both parents, your mitochondrial DNA is inherited solely through your mother. Every one of your mitochondria carries the exact same genetic signature she carried. And her mother, and her mother's mother, Bart. This is not poetry. This is molecular inheritance. It's why scientists studying human migration use mtDNA to trace maternal ancestry. It's why we know how people moved across continents, cross oceans, cross generations. The trail is written in the code of the cell's smallest fire. But mitochondrial DNA is also fragile, because it floats freely in the mitochondrial matrix without the protective shelter of a nucleus. It's more vulnerable to mutation. And when mtDNA mutates, it can have devastating effects. Energy production falters. Cells become unstable. Tissues degrade. That's why mitochondrial DNA is now a focus of intense research. We've discovered links between mtDNA damage and numerous conditions. Not just mitochondrial diseases, but aging itself, cardiovascular problems, even some forms of cancer. Scientists are exploring therapies to repair mtDNA, or even replace faulty mitochondria altogether. This has led to controversial innovations, like mitochondrial replacement therapy, sometimes called 3-parent 5EF. In this process, a child's nuclear DNA comes from 2 parents, but the mitochondria are donated by a third person, someone with healthy mitochondrial DNA. To some, this is miraculous. To others, unsettling. But at its core, it's simple. We're learning to tend the flame. to pass on light, unbroken. Even beyond health, mtDNA may play a role in personality, behavior, even resilience. Some studies have found links between mitochondrial function and mood. Others suggest mitochondria influence how we respond to stress. It is as if these tiny beings don't just keep us alive. They shape who we are, not in obvious ways, but in the background. In how much energy you feel when you wake, in how long your focus lasts, in how deeply you rest, in how quickly you recover from sadness or illness or heartbreak. Because behind every biological process, there is energy. And behind that energy, there is a flicker of mitochondria, spinning, generating, adjusting. You are not just your thoughts. You are the electricity that powers them. And part of that electricity comes from an ancient genome, hidden inside a borrowed flame. Your body is constantly negotiating between life and entropy. Every second something breaks. A strand of DNA snaps. A protein misfolds. A cell begins to drift off course. And your systems rush to respond. Repair it. Recycle it. Replace it. But slowly, quietly, the balance shifts. And one day, without ceremony, the fire begins to lower. You don't notice at first. Maybe you tire a little more easily. Or your muscles feel slower to recover. Or your memory flickers where it once glowed steady. These are not failings. These are signals. Your mitochondria, once vibrant, now dim just slightly. It's not that they stop working. It's that they work differently, more sluggishly, less efficiently. They produce more reactive oxygen species, those unstable free radicals that cause oxidative stress. They replicate less faithfully. Their membranes lose shape. Their DNA accumulates mutations. And your body, once so sharp in its cleanup, begins to fall behind. This is part of aging. But it's not aging alone. It's the biological cost of fire. Every spark leaves a trace. Every breath carries both creation and erosion. The very act of living wears the tools of life down. And yet, this isn't a tragedy. It's a truth. To burn is to change. To age is to have survived. Your mitochondria, even when they slow, are still working for you. Still humming, still handing off electrons, still spinning ATP from air and sugar. Even in the final days of life, the fire is still burning. A whisper, maybe. A glow, but still there. And that fire doesn't just end. It transfers. When your body dies, when the last breath slips from your lungs, your mitochondria do not vanish immediately. They linger. Cells continue to operate for minutes, sometimes hours. The machinery ticks softly after the lights go out. And if your body is touched by another, through transplant or preservation or even study, some of that fire may move forward. In pieces. In data. Dots. In legacy. You might even think of memory itself as mitochondrial. Not the names or faces or stories, but the ability to remember, to learn, to create synaptic space for meaning. And when someone remembers you, the echo of your fire flickers on. Your mitochondria may not survive your death, but their lineage does. Your children, if you have them, will carry your flame. Your mother's flame. Mitochondria split like the cells they live in. By fission, dividing again and again, generation after generation. Your death is not the end of them, not all at once. And maybe that's the most haunting truth of all. Part of you was never yours to begin with. You are a carrier, a vessel, a temporary cathedral for something ancient and enduring. And one day, when you are gone, the light that once burned inside you may still shimmer, somewhere else. In a heartbeat, a breath, a thought that hasn't happened yet. Let's go back to where we began. Inside your cells, tiny fires flicker. You don't see them. You don't feel them. But they are the most loyal thing you will ever carry. They lit up the first time your body began to divide in the womb. And they've never gone out. Not once. Not during sickness. Not during heartbreak. Not even in your loneliest silence. You have always been burning. And now, maybe, you begin to understand what that means. Mitochondria are not just biological engines. They are memory keepers. Ghosts. Whispering traces of an ancient world that still lives inside you. They don't remember in stories. They remember in persistence. In breath. In charge. In the quiet refusal to stop. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you've built. They don't know who you love or what you dream about when you lie alone in the dark. But they power every beat of it. They are the invisible thread behind everything you've ever said, touched, or imagined. The uncelebrated workers behind the spark in your eyes and the warmth in your hands. And someday, when your story ends, what will be left? A name, maybe. A photo, a laugh someone remembers. A tone of voice. A kindness. But also this. A line of fire passed forward. If you have children, it may live inside them. If not, then in your gestures, your creations, your impact, the energy you put into the world. Because mitochondria don't just live in bodies. They live in motion. In what we choose to do with the time we're given. And if you were ever kind, if you ever burned bright enough to make someone feel less alone, even once, then part of your fire survives. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Actually, because energy, once made, does not vanish. It changes form. It moves. It finds new places to rest. The light you carried in your chest becomes heat in someone else's palm. A word spoken that gives someone hope. A memory passed down like a torch in the dark. And that's all we ever were. Not machines. Not myths. Just a series of borrowed sparks, flickering in the night. Trying, quietly, fiercely, not to go out.